Dawn was breaking in the farmyard outside Lisa's house. The roosters crowed and the hens clucked as the sun rose hot in the sky. Lise crept outside into the crisp morning air, looking for her lover. "Colas! Colas!" she called, but he wasn't there. She gathered her favourite ribbon and wrapped it around a ladder as a token of her love, then went back into her house. Moments later, Colas appeared with a group of farm boys yawning on their way to work. Colas called out for his Lise. When she appeared to be nowhere in sight, they continued on their path, but Colas lingered behind. After some thoughtful hunting for his love, he spotted the soft pink of a silk ribbon hanging on the ladder across the yard. He took the token and tied the ribbon to his stuff. Knowing Lise was waiting for him, he peered through the crack in the window shutters and saw movement from inside the house. "Lise, it's me! Come out!" But Lise didn't appear at the window. Instead, Colas found himself gazing up at the face of Lisa's furious mother, the widow Simone. "Away with you, peasant boy! I don't want you anywhere near my daughter! Scram!" Lise returned to the yard and saw Colas. Just as they embraced, they were ripped apart by Simone, who shooed Colas away. Simone then turned on Lise. "I've told you before, Colas is a nobody. Forget him. There's sweeping to be done, cakes to be baked, butter to be churned. Stop your daydreaming and get to work." Just then, a flurry of harvesters entered the yard. They approached Widow Simone for the daily rate of their work. They haggled about wheat prices, then gathered their sickles and scurried away to begin their day's work. Lise tried to run away with the workers, but her mother was used to her attempted fleeing and quickly caught her just before she left the yard. "I've got my eye on you, young lady," Simone warned. "But Mum..." "No." "Please?" "No. Sit." Lise tried again to sneak away, but her plan was foiled, yet again, her path blocked by Simone, who now collected a butter churner and began showing Lise how to churn the butter. Simone used all the strength in her arms and somehow managed to slam the churner onto her toes. She howled, her injured toes shaking. She hobbled around the yard when her young daughter sweetly smiled and came over to give her mother's injured toe a healing kiss. Only it was the wrong toe. As Simone shuffled back inside, Lise set about churning the butter. This was hard work, and Lise quickly tired. Suddenly, Colas emerged from behind the barn, hoping to surprise his girlfriend. But he was disappointed as he found her sleeping at the butter churner. He gave her a gentle shake on the shoulder, and she woke with a start. She quickly returned to her churning. But even as she registered that it was her Colas that woke her, she stayed at the butter churner. "I have to work." He sighed and turned to leave. But then Lise spied the soft pink silk ribbon tied onto his staff. "Why did you take this?" she inquired sweetly. "Because I love you," he replied without a second thought. Lisa's heart fluttered and her cheeks blushed as they began to chase each other around the yard. They then danced together and wove the ribbon between their hands. They spun around, winding the ribbon around their waists, then took the tangled ribbon and interwove it into a neat pattern between them. A sudden rustling of trees startled the lovers, and Lise, assuming this was her mother, shooed Colas out from the yard. But again, this wasn't her mother. Instead, her best friends sneaking up behind her in the yard. "What are you doing?" they cried, alerting her to their presence. "It's such a sunny day!" They cheekily dragged Lise away from her chores and chirped happily together in the sunshine. "We're heading down to the harvest picnic. You should come. I heard Colas is going to be there," they coaxed. Simone then came into the yard. Lise hid behind her friends, hoping she wouldn't be noticed and could run away to the picnic with them, but her mother outsmarted her yet again. "What kind of fool do you take me for?" Simone bellowed. shooing the friends away. It's time to stop thinking about this good-for-nothing boy. You are to marry Elaine, as decided by me and his father, who is, may I remind you, the richest man in the village. It's time you woke up and started facing reality. Simone froze, and without warning, Farmer Thomas entered the yard with a shy boy straggling behind him. "Welcome," she cried. "How wonderful to see you both." Completely embarrassed by the scene, Lise smoothed out her dress. "Quickly, go get changed. The pretty pink dress will do nicely," Simone whispered to Lise as Farmer Thomas introduced her to Elaine. In one hand, he was clutching a wilting bunch of dandelions, and in the other, he held a bright red umbrella, which burst open as he disappeared behind it. "Don't mind Elaine. He's a little bit shy," said Farmer Thomas. Lise returned from the house wearing a beautiful pink floral frock with lace sleeves. Elaine thrust the sad-looking flowers at her, and she took them. He then performed what they could only imagine was a dance, but it looked more like an awkward gamble, and Elaine was very proud of himself. "We are heading to the harvest picnic. Would you like to join us?" Farmer Thomas asked them. "We'd love to," said Lise, who knew Colas would be there. A gorgeous pony, the colour of caramel and white chocolate, drew behind it a simple cart that Lise and her mother rode to the picnic. They soon arrived, and upon exiting the cart, Widow Simone hissed at her daughter, "Dance with him!" Lise tried to dance with Elaine, although his steps were hard to follow. He seemed to be dancing to a different tune, one that existed only in his head. But this didn't bother Lise. Her Colas was secretly dancing with her, out of sight of the feeble-minded Elaine. They continued to dance like this for some time, Colas always dodging away just as Elaine turned. Then, in a moment of inspiration, Elaine linked arms with Lise and began to uncomfortably twirl her around. Lise was quietly wondering how she would survive the rest of the dance, when she suddenly had a wonderful idea, and distracted Elaine just enough to run away with Colas. Elaine was very confused by the sudden disappearance of Lise, and gazed across the picnic area for her. However, his attention was taken by the sight of something that made him forget her instantly. One of the village boys was playing a flute. He played a lovely little tune that sparked a merry dance within the field. Elaine snatched the flute, hoping to make music that the whole picnic could dance to as well. But his playing was just as expert as his dancing, and soon everyone was yelling at him to stop. When one of the villagers stole the flute back, Elaine threw himself into a huge tantrum as the picnic played an oversized game of keepers off. Once Elaine had sulked away, the picnic began to celebrate. Lise and Colas managed to find a moment to dance together before they showed off their favourite party tricks and twirled into each other. They were so happy to have found that moment alone that they forgot to watch out for the beady eyes of Widow Simone, and very soon found firm hands pulling them apart. Hoping to change the subject, Lise spoke. "Mother, why don't you show everyone your clog dance?" "I couldn't possibly," said Simone. "I haven't danced it in years." "You know how much everyone loves it." Then she tossed her shoes into the air and put on her clogs. Clickety-clackety-click-tap, she stomped her way across the picnic ground. Clickety-clackety-click-tap. Now a group of harvesters were joining in. Clickety-clackety-click, she gave a high kick and everyone cheered. Clickety-click, kick. At the end, everyone burst into applause. Then it was time for the dance Lise loved most, the maypole. The whole village watched closely as a group of dancers in corn-coloured skirts whirled around the maypole, its ribbons braiding together as they crisscrossed past each other. The dance might have carried on all afternoon if it hadn't been for a sudden rumble of thunder. The sky darkened. Rain lashed at the maypole, then a gust of wind swept through the fields. The village people shrieked and ran for cover. It was a frantic scene of wet skirts and muddy shoes as they swirled amongst the strong gusts of wind and rain. Lise ran, looking for a tree to shelter under, when the rain began to settle. She bumped into the warm embrace of Colas, who swiftly offered the shivering Lise his jacket. Sun broke out from behind the clouds, and in the distance, Lise saw a beautiful bright rainbow. "Quick, let's say a prayer." Lise closed her eyes to pray. Just then, another clap of thunder boomed in the sky, and Colas and Lise were whisked away with a scurry of villagers fleeing the fields. Behind them, Elaine was holding tight his umbrella as the storm threatened to take it away. When they arrived home, their soggy clothes dripped puddles onto their living room floor. Simone straightened out her damp skirts and then felt that her neck was missing something. She went to collect 2 beautiful neck scarves for her and Lise. Lise went to tie a pretty pink one around her neck, but Simone wanted the pink one, so she briskly swapped them, much to Lise's disappointment, and went to lock the front door. "So you don't try to run off again," she said, pointing the key at Lise, who sighed. The two then set about spinning together yarn, but very soon, and exhausted from the kerfuffle at the picnic, Simone slowly dozed off. Using this opportunity, Lise quietly crept around her mother to steal the house key from her pocket. Lise checked that her mother was truly asleep when... "Oh!" cried Widow Simone as her eyes opened and saw her daughter's hand at her face. "What on earth are you doing? There was a fly, and it landed on your nose," began Lise, making up the story on the spot. Lise opened her hand and clapped the imaginary fly, watching it fall onto the floor before squishing it with her toes. To her relief, her mother believed her story and went to fetch a small tambourine, which she played so she could watch her daughter dance around the room. Soon, Widow Simone began to yawn and fell yet again into a snoring slumber. "Lise!" cried a voice from the door. Lise turned to see that Colas had managed to climb the door and was peering into her house. She ran over to him and gave him a big hug. They danced together. Even though Colas was awkwardly leaning in through the door, they were perfectly in sync, and Lise was happy to be with him. A sudden bang from the tambourine startled everyone, including Widow Simone, who woke from her nap. Terrified that her mother would know that she'd been dancing with Colas, Lise began bouncing around, making it seem like she hadn't stopped. This seemed to work, and Simone was once again fooled. There was a sudden knock on the door, and in came the harvesters, who placed a high pile of the day's gatherings on the floor. As they left, Lise tried to escape with them, a plan which was thwarted by her mother. "Oh my, look at the time! I'd better go. It's time for you to get married," sung Simone. Lise was stunned. She had to run away. Now. "Okay, I'll come with you." "Oh no, you don't." Simone threw her daughter back in the room and quickly closed and locked the door, trapping Lise inside. Lise was horrified and furious. She cried angry tears into the sofa cushions. To think she would soon be married to Elaine, that childish young man who cared more about his umbrella than anything else. She couldn't bear to think about the wedding. Instead, she thought of Colas. What if she could marry Colas instead of Elaine? She started to daydream out loud. Our wedding would be wonderful, and we'd live in the village. One day we'll have children, just one, or maybe 2, no, 3, and we would teach them to read and scold them when they're naughty. We would love all our children and be the best parents in the village.
Oh, would we now?
Colas! She shrieked, shocked to discover him hiding amongst the wheat pile. She was mortified and hid underneath her neck scarf as she began to cry of embarrassment. How did you even get in here?
Love always finds a way, he said dramatically. And I snuck in earlier. Hey, don't cry.
I love you. Telling me your dreams won't change that. You love me? Truly? She said sweetly. Colas began to list all the things he loved about her. Her eyes, her cheeky smile, the way she always found a way to get what she wanted. Then she listed all the things she loved about him. He was kind, honest, and always found a way to be with her. They exchanged neck scarves as a pledge of their love, and for one shining moment they were both so happy, until, through the window, Lise saw the green tartan of her mother's dress. "Quick, hide!" she cried. Colas and Lise ran about the room, looking for the best hiding place. Some options were better than others. "My bedroom! Go! Hurry!" Colas ran up the stairs and slid into the dark room, while Lise hurriedly tried to clean the room. Simone waddled in through the door and took the broom from Lise.
"It's time. Go put your wedding dress on."
"Now? No!" But Simone caught a glimpse of Lisa's neck scarf. "Pink? But I'm wearing pink." "There was another one," Lise stammered, but when Simone checked the empty basket, she turned a questioning eye on Lise. "And what about this mess?" It all just exploded. Boom!" "Your stories don't fool me anymore, young lady. If I find that peasant boy Colas hiding in this room," Simone threatened. "Now, Mother, why—" Lise started. "Enough! Elaine will be here soon. Get into your dress and don't even think of running away. I'm locking your door." And she shoved Lise inside her room, turning the key thrice in the lock. Not a minute later, Elaine and Farmer Thomas arrived at the door. With him, Notar and his assistant, who handled the marriage licensing. As Widow Simone and Farmer Thomas enjoyed a celebratory drink, Lisa's friends came into the room, excited for the wedding, but with mixed feelings about the man she was marrying. And then Elaine arrived, wearing a periwinkle blue tailcoat, a lurid gold waistcoat, and his bright red umbrella still clutched in his hand. In the other hand, he held a hefty diamond ring. "Your bride awaits you," said Simone, handing Elaine the key to Lisa's bedroom. "Let her out." So Elaine climbed the stairs and found himself at the door. He placed the key in the lock and turned it thrice. The door swung open to the sight of Lise and Colas kissing. "No!" cried Elaine. "No!" cried Simone as she fainted from shock. Farmer Thomas was in a great rage. He roared, shaking his fists at Simone and Lise. Elaine wailed. It was awful, and Farmer Thomas went to comfort his son. It was as if someone had taken away his precious umbrella. I'm not getting married?" he asked his father. Lise went over to her mother, who was angry and confused. "I love Colas. Please," begged Lise. "Let us be married." Simone looked at her daughter and then at the weeping Elaine. She had thought that Elaine's riches would make her happy, but then she really looked at her daughter, and with Colas standing beside her, it was clear that Lise had everything she wanted. "Of course! I want you to be happy." Farmer Thomas's rage intensified. He was furious and stormed out of the house, dragging a simpering Elaine with him. Finally, Colas and Lise could dance together without hiding. It was a rapturous dance, with love irradiating around the room. The two of them spun in complete euphoria. It was a delightful affair, and soon everyone in the house jumped up to dance happily with the couple. They skipped and galloped out of the house and took to the fields for a joyous celebration. The house was empty and quiet, until Elaine reappeared, worry in his eyes. He had lost something very important to him. After a few desperate moments, he spotted the bright red of his umbrella lying on the table. He danced for joy, and he had found his one true love. Elaine and his red umbrella lived happily ever after.